It's much, much more difficult for out-of-control government officials at the top to get somebody to be quiet who's a whistleblower. So that's why they come down on them so hard, and that's why I think it's so important for us to support them. So the next person I'm going to bring, I'm afraid we only can give him only 5 minutes, but he's a Kings Point graduate of the 1991 class. He was a Naval Commission. He was an officer in the U.S. Merchant Marine, and he blew the whistle on what is going on with the U.S. Merchant Marine and the maritime industry. And, he's a great patriot. Please help me give a hand to Mr. Eric Shine. Come on up, Eric. And I'm going to have to ask all the speakers to hold this microphone close. I guess in the back they cannot hear you guys very well.
I don't think I'll have that problem. I have a pretty loud voice. I went to Kings Point. It's a sister academy. It's a federal and military service academy. It's a sister academy to Annapolis and West Point, the Air Force Academy and U.S. Coast Guard Academy. Coming out of there, I have a Naval Commission. I also have a license from the U.S. Coast Guard as an engineer. I also have a degree in marine engineering. I've come out and tried to warn people about what's going on, much like Rodney Stitch has about what's going on in the FAA and the airline industry. Right now, our United States Merchant Marine, 97% of it has been outsourced to not only foreign interests, foreign corporations, but foreign governments. American President Lines used to be our premier flag carrier. It was sold to Neptune Orient Lines, which is owned and controlled predominantly by the Singaporean government. Our United States Merchant Marine is a valid public trust that is supposed to be held in public trust for all, rich and poor, not owned and controlled by these corporatist industrialists. You can call them the New World Orders, the PNACers, and others. They have attacked me because I have come out not only in defense of the Jones Act, which is the cabotage laws here in the United States that controls issues of what they're trying to do and what they want to do and what they're trying to work for and have been for some time now, is to allow foreign flag vessels with foreign crews from other countries to run our goods on our waterways between, like, say, San Diego and Los Angeles, also up the Mississippi River and other places, so they can avoid any kind of regulation as to safety, health, labor laws, et cetera, et cetera. We in the United States Merchant Marine are valid federal and military officers who are under attack from our own government or individuals within our own government, many of these people who have an alliance with the corporations. Secretary of the Treasury John Snow used to be President CEO of CSX Rail and Shipping Company. He has a vested interest in the stuff that's going on with the Dubai ports. A lot of the stuff, you'll hear about this. There's actually been another article that was just put out, I think today or yesterday, I think it was a $75 million study on our logistical and intermodal infrastructure, which includes not just the ports, but the trains and the United States Merchant Marine. Because of my stance in protecting the United States Merchant Marine as not only a valid federal and military service, but a public trust that must be maintained as a public trust, they have come after me. I had sued the shipping companies like Matson, American President Lines, and others, and my own Federal Officers Association, the Marine Engineers Beneficial Association. All of these entities are, quote-unquote, general agencies of the United States. They sign what are called general agency agreements. But they've now sold off pieces of the United States, basically our bridges to other civilization, our rights of way, just like the railroads back in the 1800s. These are the robber barons who are stealing U.S. Treasury assets, not only selling it off to foreign corporations or foreign governments, they're selling it off to foreign corporations and foreign governments that they have a leg in on. They're benefiting from this enormously themselves, and I'm asking you to help me get out the issues of the United States Merchant Marine, what Kings Point is all about, what they've done to me. I had actually sued the shipping companies and my own Federal Officers Association. They got Homeland Security to file a counter complaint under Article 2 proceedings, executive administrative proceedings, pull me out of civil court and prosecute me for my civil complaints. They put out a BOLO on me, a be on the lookout, saying that I may be dangerous, along with the rest of you in here, of course. What is going on is gravely serious. Anyone who sees themselves, like Joe Bannister and others, as a public servant, or who fights for the public trust or public rights or public interest, is coming under attack enormously, because now we have these corporate types, these internationalists, these industrials, just like during World War II, these corporatists who wish to take our country from us piece by piece, and they're doing it right now in front of us. And what's going on with the port security deal is nothing compared to what is really going on. They're trying to take even our court system and set up each individual court, whether it be a bankruptcy court or a district court or other courts, as limited liability corporations, so that they can use one court to attack you in one venue or jurisdiction and another, even though they're all, quote unquote, representing the United States, just basically take anything and everything from you, as they have done to me. I'm asking for help. And just like with Joe Bannister, when people circle the wagons, a couple other people have alluded to this, when people circle the wagon, these people are like cockroaches. They run. So that when people like myself and others who are out there, whistleblowers especially, who are under attack, trying to get out information about what's going on from the inside. My brother went to West Point. My father went to West Point. My uncle went to Annapolis. I went to Kings Point. My family, and you can, say what you want about the federal government, but we need to protect our Constitution, both state and federal, because what these guys want to do is to dissolve the United States from within, so that they can take all the assets, the U.S. Treasury assets, and put them in their own pocket, just like they did in the USSR and many other countries. Because if there is no more USSR or no more USA, then everything's up for grabs. And it's the last man out the door who turns off the lights that gets to own and control whatever they can shove in their pocket. And these guys are doing it to the United States now. And it's your obligation and duty to help and support all these people, and especially whistleblowers and people like Payman, to make sure that we get out the word and as quickly as possible, so that it doesn't happen anymore, and especially not here in the United States. Thanks for the 5 minutes or so. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric, for coming down and sharing. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. The next speaker comes to us from South Carolina, and he's the gentleman I had the pleasure of meeting back in the late 90s, and he was a Vietnam War veteran. When he came back, wanted to do good work and do justice, so he got a law degree and became an attorney. But then he changed his mind. He figured he could do more good by being a leader of the freedom movement and waking up people to what's going on with the attack upon our rights by our out-of-control government, who has no respect for its own constitution and people's rights. And he formed the Patriot Network, the largest freedom group that has ever existed in the southeastern region of the United States. And he has a lot of good information about not only the IRS, but also the banks, how they work together, how they take away your privacy, how they enslave you, and how to give you some solutions for it. You've heard a lot of problems throughout this conference, what's going on out there. Well, folks, now we're going to start giving you a lot more of the solutions. I'm going to give you a lot more of it for you at my speech after 5, and our next speaker right now is going to start giving some solutions as well. Please help me give a warm hand of welcome to Dr. Robert Clarkson.
Thank you, Payman, for that fine introduction, and also thank you for Payman for putting on this fine rally. It's very important that the patriots in the local area and in the West Coast and nationwide come together from time to time and meet one another, pick up a vast amount of information, meet the leaders, hear great classes, and lots of good networking, plus a little gossip about people that are not here. But all of this is not possible unless you attend. Payment can't put on these meetings, and Steve Hempfling can't put on his seminars, and Paul Balmer can't teach a great class unless you attend, tell people about it, and make that often strenuous effort to be here and stay here and listen attentively and also help out the vendors. Your presence here is important, and if you're not here, then Payment can't do things like this. So let's everybody make a special effort. Whenever you hear about events like this, attend, of course, bring other people too. So we've got an exciting program today, and I'll be teaching about the banks or the banksters. Incidentally, our last speaker forgot to tell you that Bob Schultz, one of our great heroes, also graduated from the United States Merchant Marine Academy on Long Island, New York State. But we've got some tremendous patriot leaders nationwide, but they can't do anything and they can't accomplish anything unless everybody chips in and makes that great effort to help out. And also I've noticed here we have a lot of buddy and patriot leaders who've written, who've studied, and they need to do more. So let's make more racket. Let's have 50 payments in this area out organizing and teaching and putting out material. Well, I want to go in my class now. And I want to start out by telling everybody the IRS is not the enemy. They are the minions and the lackeys to the enemy. The enemy is the banksters. The international bankers want to take away your rights and liberties. What Bill Still showed us in the film last night, that great South Carolinian General President Andrew Jackson called them a den of vipers. Thomas Jefferson said that central banking is a greater threat to our rights and liberties than standing armies. Then he abolished the first bank of the U.S. and the standing army. Of course, he kept a permanent Navy because the Navy warfare is a come-as-you-are war. But we had plenty of militia, United States Military Academy, and a military establishment in Washington. We also had 3,000 miles of wide blue ocean between us and any potential enemy. So we didn't need all this army, didn't need all these taxes, and we didn't need central banking. But in 1913, the conspirators, worldwide international financiers, tricked the Congress and the people and pushed on us the central bank. Then they immediately got us in World War I. Then they took away the booze. Well, goodness gracious, central banking ain't doing us any good. And then they got us in the Great Depression and gave Roosevelt the New World Order, the end, the opportunity to take away some more of our rights and liberties. Lincoln used war and death and destruction to set up the national banking system, the forerunner of the international bankers. And then they got us in wars and depressions to push this upon us. But what can you do? What effort can you make to preserve your rights and liberties and your privacy and that of your 300 million other Americans? What you can do is stay away from the banks. The banks and the IRS and the Federal Reserve have one computer system. They all interlocked. Basically, they're all the same. When you deal with the banks, you're dealing with the Federal Reserve, your sworn enemy. And every time you write a check, just remember that bankster is making a copy of it. Used to be microfiche, now it's digital. And they keep a copy of that check forever. Federal law requires they only have to make a copy of checks over $200 and keep them 7 years. But they're making a copy of all your checks and keeping them forever, and they're not doing that to help you out. It's a problem. What they want is total control. They want to run you. They want to tell you what time to get up in the morning, what clothes to wear, what to eat, and what to do all day. This is what they did in the Soviet Union. This is what they do in totalitarian societies, and that's Hillary's wish for America. After all, she was quoted, of course the newspapers lie a lot, but she was quoted in the newspaper saying she and her friends are going to take away our rights and liberties the salami method, slice by slice. That's their purpose, and they can't do that till they have total information. Now, we don't have computer chips in us now. Hopefully we don't. But right now they've got something more insidious and much more deadly to your privacy and your self-respect, and that's the checkbook. When you write checks, you're giving vast amount of information to your known and sworn enemies. If you look at a check, you'll see the date on there, your signature, who you wrote the check out for, the amount, and the purpose, what it's for. And just remember, they're making a copy of that, and they're keeping a record of it, and they're going to use it against you someday. Information leads to power. Power leads to control. The steps to your loss of individual liberty starts when you give somebody else information about your life and your activities. It's all there. People say, well, all they got is a few hundred checks a month. Let me tell you something. The experts can go through your checking account and look at those canceled checks and tell more about you than your preacher and your doctor know. Your history is all there. Now you say, well, all I got down there is the name of Dr. Jones. They can look in the phone book and see what kind of doctor Dr. Jones is. He's a urologist. Then they phone around the community and say the check's for $213.15. What does the urologist charge for that? It's a prostate exam. They got a date and your medical condition. What they're going to use that for? A lot of things. You don't want your enemies to know all this information about you. After all, you watch those mafia movies, the hitman never takes a contract until he has a picture. I mean, he doesn't want to face a life sentence or a trial for hitting the wrong guy. He might not get paid. The enemy needs information about you, and it's all there in your checkbook or your bank statements. All right, when you open your checking account, they give you a signature card. I'd heard this for years, and finally a friend of mine opened a checking account and had a dispute with the bank over the Social Security number, and he brought me the signature card. And sure enough, those old patriot extremist right-wing nuts were correct. But on every signature card, it's written down there, I agree to obey the rules and regulations of the Federal Reserve. I agree to submit to the jurisdiction of the Federal Reserve. And I waive all my rights and liberties. And it's written there. So when you open a bank account, you sign that. And every time you sign a check, you're reaffirming the jurisdiction of the Federal Reserve over you and your family, the enemy, the banksters. Well, folks, a lot of ways to get out of that. The main way to get out of this is don't be writing all these checks. Even if you work for a big company and they got a direct deposit, you can use your ATM card and get you some cash. When you buy groceries and food or point of purchase items, pay cash. It's a lot easier, it's a lot better, it works better. Let me explain the average person. He goes into the candy shop. He goes up to the counter and pulls out his checkbook. And he asks the name of the candy shop, Joe's Candy Shop. Got to write that down. How much is the candy? Well, then he's got to write down one NICKEL. Then he's got to sign it. Got to put the date on it. Got to put his for. All this takes time. Then he's got to write in his check. Do they still? I hadn't had a checking account in so long. Do people still have checkbooks, check stubs? You tear it off and you write it down again. Write all that stuff down again. That takes time. Time is money. But that's just the beginning. Each month you got to reconcile, add up all this, subtract all of that, and figure it out right. All this takes time that you should be spending with your loved ones and your family and supporting your church. So what you want to do is learn to pay cash. When you go buy a piece of candy, reach in your pocket, bring out your nickel, slap it on the counter. A lot simpler, a lot easier. So get used to it. A credit card's even worse. It's got all this time, date, and place, and exact items you're buying. You don't want this in the hands of your enemy. They're keeping these records forever. So when you buy gasoline and stuff, go pay cash. Now, I travel a lot, so I buy a lot of gas, and it's a lot easier to stick a credit card. I've got one that's not in my name, but I've got one. That's why I got tickets here. When I check out of the hotel, I'll go pay cash. But if I buy gas, everybody says it's a lot easier to stick that card in. Do you punch your PIN number in? I've never done it. When you buy gas, how do you do that? You stick the card in and do whatever you're supposed to do, and then you pull the card out, get in your car, and go. Whereas when I buy gas, I got to go inside the building, pay cash, and come out. But there's no record of where I've been that day. If you buy gas at San Jose, at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, whatever, then there's a record of what time and what place you were that day. And you don't want all these records. That ain't doing you any good. So spend a little extra time, spend a little extra effort, and start paying cash for things. And in most cases, you'll find out it's so much easier and simpler just to pay cash. When you pay stuff through the mails, you can also send cash. Now, we don't recommend sending cash to the utility companies, too many people. But if you order something from somebody you know, you can send cash. It's a lot easier than you think. You want to, of course, buy something here at places like this, of course, by all means, pay cash. You can do it. It's so much easier, so much more convenient. It's just that you've been lied to by the politicians so long that you think that paying by check or credit card is simple. It's not. It takes a lot of time. All these records and stuff like that. Don't know what's going on. Spend a lot more money than you plan to with a credit card. That's why these merchants want you to use plastic. You're not aware of what it's costing and you spend more. If you got to reach in an old wallet and bring out that greenery, you know what you're spending. You don't spend as much, and then you won't have all these debt problems at the end of the year. So the way to go is go cash. Now, if you have a small business, and a very large number of people here have small businesses or have a little part-time business, what we want you to do, and this is the main thing we want you to do, is we want you to recycle checks. We want you to use incoming checks to pay outgoing bills. If you write me a check, I write on the back of that check, Robert B. Clarkson, payable to Southern Bell, and then I send your check to telephone, and they'll take it. Then I have no record of what comes in, and I have no record of what goes out. When you recycle checks, generally to the utility companies, they run a revolving account. They don't care whether it's more, a little bit more, a little bit less. They don't even know. It's automated. But generally speaking, anybody that you owe money to will take recycled checks. Utility companies, if you got a business and you buy stuff on the account, credit cards, all these people take recycled checks, and therefore there's no record easily accessible to you that the enemy can get hold to. So use incoming checks to pay outgoing bills. You can also cash the check, filling station, grocery store, some friend that you know. A lot of companies are glad to cash checks from people that know they don't have all that cash around and security problems. You can cash check with friends, neighbors, relatives. You can cash it at business people that you know. What most people do is they go to the bank where the check is written. Federal law requires them to cash the check if you present identification. Of course, a lot of times they give you a lot of trouble. But under the law, you can cash checks at the bank where they're written, and it's a simple little mechanism to do that after they get used to you being very demanding. But you can cash it at various places. Also, if you get a Social Security check or a military retirement or some government check, have it sent to your paper. If you have it sent direct deposit to your bank account, that's a paper trail you're getting it and a paper trail where you spend it. That's not doing you any good to have the enemies have that kind of information. So have your government check sent to you, your address, paper, have a check sent to you, and go to the post office and cash it. Federal law requires the post office to cash all government checks. You just have to present identification, and they have to have the cash there, which they generally don't have in the morning, but they generally have in the afternoon. But I've been getting a VA check for years. I started getting a VA check, went down to the post office and cashed this check. Lady refused. I said, you have to cash this check. It's a VA check. It's a government check. I got 2 pieces of identification here. One of them's a VA card. I said, you got to cash the check. She said that she would not cash it. She never would, and she never had. And there's no law requiring her to do it. I said, well, I've been dealing with government agencies for years. I'm used to this kind of horse manure. So I said, let me speak to your supervisor. She says she's not getting her supervisor. She doesn't have to do it. So I raised my voice a little bit, said, now bring your supervisor here. Federal law requires when I ask for a supervisor, you got to bring her. She mumbled a little bit and went and got her, and the supervisor came over there, and here's my VA check. Here's my signature. Here's my 2 pieces of identification, including the VA card. And I live right around the corner from the post office. You can almost see my house. I said, see, I want this check cashed. She said, we're not going to cash your check. We never have, and no law requires it. I said, the law does require it, and I cashed the check. So we got in a little argument, so I said, okay, call Columbia. That's the headquarters for the post office for South Carolina. I'll call Columbia. I want to talk to your boss. And she says, we're not going to do that. And I said, yes, you are. She argued about that, and finally she said, we're not going to call. I said, okay, I'm staying here. I'm not moving. I'm going to stay right here, and I'll call the cops. She said, we won't call the cops. Here, we'll cash the check for you. And she handed the check, supervisor handed it to the girl, and you could tell she'd cashed government checks before she knew where those lines were. But did it real fast. And then I said, I want to see a copy of the regulation. Of course, both of them said it didn't exist, and I said, okay, and I've already asked for it twice, and I want to see it. She reached right down there without looking for it, brought it out, and gave it to me. They knew all the time. They were just testing me. About should have known better, but 5 or 6 months later, I was in another part of town. There was a post office close by. Didn't go back to the same one. I went to the other one because I was doing some shopping right next to it, just convenient. Same thing. Here it is, all this arguing, and finally they cashed it. So now I had 2 of them. From then on out, those 2 post offices would always cash it. But the other ones had to fight with every one of them. So when you deal with the federal government, and in many cases the banksters, who are almost the same thing, expect trouble, expect nuisance. You go up there the first time, so somebody wrote you a check. You go to their bank the first time, and they squawk and scream and holler. Well, that's their problem. The law requires them to cash the check. Or you can go to the magistrate and take a warrant on their depositor. Ask them if they want that. If the bank refuses to cash a check that's drawn on one of their accounts, that means it's non-sufficient funds and the check is fraudulent. If you have a fraudulent check, you can take a check warrant against the person that wrote the check. So just tell the lady there that you're going to take a warrant against her customer that wrote this check. And tell her she better check with her boss first, because this guy might sue him for a couple of $1 million. The law says if you present a check drawn on the bank with identification, the money's there, they have to cash the check. Now, they fight that, and they scream and holler, but it's still law. Sometimes you can do it, and it's a big problem. What we recommend is the first time you go do that, just plan to have a couple hours to spare. Because they're going to fight and argue with you and just create a fuss and tell them to call the cops and create a stink. Then the next time, try to go back to the same branch and the same teller. You won't have all these problems. The best case I ever had was a case in Florida. Guy had a store, a retail store, and right across, he said he couldn't get out of bank and he had to deal in cash and it couldn't be done. I said, look, just go get a couple of checks and see if you can go cash them. Is there a bank close by? Oh, there are no banks nearby and it can't be done and all this stuff. However, he did tell me there was a bank right across the street. And I said, well, go there and see if they'll cash it there. They'll know you. Oh, no, they're not going to do this. They don't cash checks for anybody. and they know I'm a tax protester, and they're not going to help me out. Well, you know, right across the street from you must know somebody there. He didn't know anybody in that bank except his niece who had been working there for about 10 years. So anyway, I persuaded him to go over there when his niece was working and cash some checks. So after a few months, the niece would cash them. Then when she wasn't there, the other girls knew that this was his niece, and so they'd cash the checks. He'd go over there, retail store, 1 inch or 2 inch of checks. Every day, about 3 o'clock, cash all the checks and give them a list of money orders or bank checks, which they would write for him free. They'd just write the checks out for him free. He'd give them a list, the amount, and who it's to be made for, and they'd write them all out, sign them, give them back to him. He'd just stand in line for, just stand in front of the teller for a few minutes, get them all cash, get all his bank checks and money orders done, and found it very, very convenient. Been doing this for years, and he called me up one time and said the bank was being sued by the Department of Justice on behalf of the no-good-writing IRS to get a copy of his bank records and use them against him. So we went to suit and filed what's called a bank summons lawsuit, third-party financial record keeper petition to quash under IRC 7609. We do thousands of those things. Lots of people say you can't win, but we've won a bunch over the years. But anyway, if they try to get your bank records, you can file suit. So he filed a lawsuit in federal court, and he called me up about 2 months later, about 60 days later, and he said the Department of Justice had filed an answer, and then the bank had filed one too. And this is what the bank had said. The bank lawyer signed a statement under oath saying he did not have a bank account there. And therefore, these checks were not indexed under his name. See, normally they punch in your account number, your socialist slave number, and out spits a copy of all the checks you've written and all your deposits. That's how they do it. The digital system, these checks spit out in a couple of minutes, all of them. They can access them all at almost no cost. But the bank lawyer told the judge, in this case, he didn't have an account there, and they'd cashed all his checks, and I know he came by every day at 3 o'clock cashing a whole bunch of checks, still doing it. But they did not have these checks indexed under his name. They were there in the bank. They had copies in the bank. They had the records, but there's no indexing system to his name, so they couldn't pull them up the normal system. Then the bank lawyer told the judge, it'd take 1,000 men, 1,000 years to get all those checks he'd cashed there. So a lot of people say, well, you got all these checks coming to you, and they can get all that stuff. Yeah, they spend a few $1 billion, they can probably get a lot of checks. But if you deposit these checks in your bank account, and the computer spits out these digital pictures and sockets, and it doesn't cost them anything. So in other words, they've got total access. They've got the information. But if you don't have a bank account, and even though these checks are all around, they're not accessible and not accessible at any reasonable cost. So that's the key. You can have all the information out there. It's whether they can get it and whether they can use it. And this is what the banks are perfect at doing, organizing all your personal financial records in such a way they have easy access to them at almost no cost. So this is what we're trying to do, is tell people the importance to have respect for your privacy, and that is deal in cash. And if you have a business, you recycle checks. If you have a Social Security check, you go to the post office and cash it, then spend cash all day. You say, well, I'm 75 years old and I'm no threat to the government. Well, who knows what these people are going to do to us someday. Let me give you a history of totalitarian governments. They used to say Stalin was the biggest mass murderer in history. Well, they used to say he killed a piddly 30 million. Now the records and archives are open, and the Russian historians and scientists are saying that Stalin and Lenin killed 50 million of their own people. But that's a pittance compared to Mao Zedong. The Chinese scholars and authors are now putting out the figures on him. They're saying that Mao Zedong killed of his own people, of his Chinese people, not enemies, not war, just killing them, 90 million people. What's the population of California? 38? So he could kill everybody in the state of California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, kill everybody in the state of California and adjacent states, well, going through in British Columbia too, it still wouldn't get 90 million people. That guy killed a lot of people. But he was a piker compared to Pol Pot. Pol Pot, the communist totalitarian dictator of Cambodia, killed 1/3 of his population. Next time you go to a family reunion, just look around and imagine 1/3 of them not there. Or walk around your neighborhood and imagine 1/3 of the houses being empty. 1 out of 3 people, that's a bunch. He killed everybody in this country that had a high school education or above and their families. He killed all the doctors and engineers. Boys, they sure had a problem when disease came through. Then he killed everybody in this country that ever been abroad and their families. She got everybody that had contact with other people. This guy was bad. Let me tell you how bad he was. Hillary, back when she was in college, sponsored, organized, and participated in rallies and demonstrations in favor of Pol Pot. She's a big fan of his. That's her hero. And she might say, well, I didn't know this guy was such a mass murderer. And I didn't know Bill was cheating on me. But I think she's lying. So, who knows? Hillary or somebody like her may be in the charge in Washington someday. If you think, let me put it this way, all of us would look back to the wonderful glory days when the Bushes were president. Okay. We don't know what these people are going to do. We know they're determined to get power, absolute power. And they'll stop at nothing. They're utterly ruthless. Look at their buddies they've got in power. Lenin, Stalin, Hitler, International Socialist, National Socialist, all the same thing, still socialist. Mao Zedong, North Korea, Vietnam, all these people are mass murderers, just kill, kill, kill. Of course, they can't kill anybody unless they can find them, and they can't find them unless they have information about them. So if you deny your sworn and known enemies information about your life and your activities, you can hurt them. Let me tell you something real simple. See if you can figure this out. If I've known what you've done in the past, I've got a complete record of all your activities for the last 3 years, where you've been, what you bought, who you associate with. All this is on your checkbook. Everything's in your checkbook or your credit card. I have all this information about your past activities. I can tell right now what you're doing. Makes sense, doesn't it? If I have all this information about your past activities, I know what you're going to be doing in the future. I know where you are. I know where you're going to be. I have all this information about you. Careless. You've been spreading it around. And you put it in position where the Hillaries can get it real easy. And she does not have your best interest. We don't know who's going to be in charge of this country. But we know that sooner or later there's going to be a big change. Let me tell you something. Our country is teetering on an economic collapse. Our fiat currency is worth nothing, and the rest of the world knows it. That paper money is only good as long as some Walmart or Kmart takes it. The time will come when the stores won't take your Federal Reserve notes, and we have economic collapse, monetary collapse. Your currency is worth nothing. It's fiat currency. That means it's backed not by silver and gold or something honest or bonds or something honest and it's worth something. Your Federal Reserve notes are backed by the ignorance of the American people of what money is and their trust in the politicians. And that's going to end someday. USA Today, which is not exactly a right-wing organization, had a series of articles about 4 to 6 months ago. I clipped them out. Of course, I lost them. That said the national debt The true national debt is over $50 trillion. And it might be up to $150 trillion. $50 trillion is a figure that can never be paid. They can't pay it. It can't be done. We just don't have that much economy and that enough people and all those taxes. When the baby boomers go get their their Social Security, which the politicians have promised them, it ain't going to be there. It's already been spent. It's been spent on foreign aid and farm welfare and all these giveaway programs. It's not there, and you're not going to get it. And any day now, the people in the rest of the world who have $500 billion, probably $1 trillion in Federal Reserve notes that they carry around, let's put it this way. In the rest of the world, they worse off. In the rest of the world, the Federal Reserve note's better than their currency. Let's see, Argentina's just went through their 10th currency collapse. Israel goes through one every couple of years. Brazil's teetering. Price of oil saved Venezuela from having another one. The Russians have had a number of economic collapses. The Germans had a real famous one in 1923. The people in China turned to Mao Zedong for help and assistance because the nationalist Chinese had inflated the currency into nothing. So when a massive inflation hits, commerce stops, everybody loses their job, riots in the streets, National Guard, tanks running over people's houses and cars, chaos. So the economic collapse is coming. The Federal Reserve note is worthless. It's going to be recognized by the people as worthless. And when that happens, the New World Order is going to pull a power grab, and then the fighting starts. So hopefully Payman and I and other leaders can get these patriot clubs organized all over the country and get people organized and working together and have some coordination, because there's going to be a war. I've been through one, and I can assure you it's unpleasant. The Federal Reserve note is headed to zilch, zero. It's going to collapse. Fini, over with. We don't know the time and the place, but let me tell you something. The inevitable always happens. Sooner or later, all fiat currency, unbacked currency, collapses. And when it does, the money in your wallet is worth nothing. You can't spend it. And the pay the boss pays you is worth nothing, and the stores don't sell anything unless you have silver and gold or foreign currency that's worth something. So when that time comes, they're going to pull up. The New World Order is going to try to take over. Hopefully we can fight them and win. But Hillary and her people are going to go to the banks and get all these records on you and know what you're doing and what you've been doing. And they're going to know what side you're on. And I'm telling you, it's not going to do you any good. So what you want to do now is start respecting your privacy, stay away from the banks. If you can, close your bank accounts out. It can be done. It's a lot easier than you think. And a number of techniques. Now what we have here is a number of books and videos that you can use to study and learn. This class here is about a fourth of the class that I normally give. But we have a videotape where you can purchase and watch the rest of the class that I'm giving to you. It tells you how to run your affairs without a bank account, how to negotiate long-distance transactions with no bank account, and how to deal in cash. The information in this videotape is very good. The people have been using this for about 30 years, and I hadn't had any complaints. The videotape is very much up to date. And then, of course, the videotape's also in a DVD version. I've got a table right over there, and we've got videotapes and a lot of other material. We also have right here on the table over there the most important book in the Patriot community, Clarkson's No Checks. This shows you how to get out of banking safely, easily, very convenient, no checks. Now, I'll tell you right now, everybody, at first, there's a transition period. You've changed the way you've done stuff. Well, I see a lot of white hair here. Some of y'all for 50 years. For some of you young folks, maybe only 10. But you can change your pattern of activities. It's difficult, it's hard to change. But when you finish, you're glad you did this one. This is the most convenient, best way to run your business. It works real good, and this stuff has been tried. I don't put anything out unless I've tried this myself or been doing it a long time. Some of y'all have known me for a long time. I've been active in the Patriot movement since the middle 70s. I've been doing this longer than Steve Hempflink, and you know he's ancient. The only person been doing this longer than me is the great Dan Pillow back there. It's got a booth back there in the corner. He's been doing this since the middle 60s. But the information we're putting out here is what we've tried and tested and proven over the years. And the next thing is, I talked earlier about the collapse of the dollar as a way to protect yourself, and that's buying precious metals, silver and gold. We've got a DVD and a video and a silver and gold purchase program where you can purchase these items very cheaply compared to other things. So we recommend that you buy silver and gold. We also recommend you get out of banking. Well, let me tell you how the system works. If you trust the politicians, I want you to put your life savings and your investments in Treasury bonds and Federal Reserve notes. If you trust the innate nature of men who have been using precious metals for 6,000 years, then you put your life savings in silver and gold. So that's my advice. I thank all y'all for coming out, and I especially thank Payman for his very, very much hard work in putting on this program and the one in Atlanta about 6 months ago. Hopefully Payman will do another one in the Southeast, so some of these fine... Listen, most of y'all here from sunny Southern California. I don't know about that the last couple of days. But Payman called me up a couple of months ago and said, come on down there to speak. I said, that's too far to go. He said, you'll love it in sunny Southern California. And you get away from all this freezing rain. Well, anyway, I'm glad I came here, but I want to thank y'all for coming out. But I want to tell you something. You're very, very fortunate to be those that live in this area to have Payman putting these things on in your area. A lot of folks had spent some nice bucks to fly in here in a couple of days traveling. So support Payman wherever you can. If you talk to him, hint to him and say, boy, that Clarkson guy sure talks nice. And we sure would like y'all put another one down there in Atlanta for those Southern boys. Thank you, Payman.
Thank you, Robert. Which, by the way, while we're at it, we're going to, let me ask you, how many of you are from...